Welcome back to another podcast show. This is Miriam, Raise Your Vibes. Today's theme is quite a controversial one, and it's one that I guess some individuals, not all, some individuals can relate to, and potentially you might be triggered by the topic, so just be aware of that. You know, in life we go through situations where people try very, very hard to silence us from telling our truth. And that's today's theme. In our world, which unfortunately is becoming more and more toxic, more and more cases of harassment, rape, assault, victimization, bullying, harassment, people working in teams to ridicule, to basically make one particular individual suffer. It's happening more and more. And in fact, it's happening on quite a large scale as well. Clearly something in the universe is hopefully coming to a stop or a shift. But obviously, as we are going through that scenario, we don't necessarily recognize what's going on. You know, we see certain things unfolding, and we take the human being part of us into thinking that, you know, this is something about us and it's something about our particular journey. And we don't necessarily recognize that it's about a bigger picture. It's about the patterns, and it's about the various aspects of our lives that we haven't yet resolved, or we haven't yet conquered or mastered or learned or walked away from, to be quite frank. Same patterns of behaviour will keep happening in our lives, you know, until we resolve it. Now, depending on your situation and depending on your predicament, you'll find that there are times when, you know, these particular individuals that you're dealing with, the ones that I guess are the dark work and you're the light work, you're doing the shadow work of yourselves, you're trying to resolve some situations, but unfortunately, again and again and again, despite mastering your patterns and despite trying to master and conquer and gain strength from it, these individuals that are toxic, that are demonic, that are obviously not working for the same source and the same power as yourselves, you know, will unfortunately keep trying very, very hard to reduce you to nothing and reduce you to very little energy, very little friendships, very little support mechanisms. They will establish that anxiety within you. They will establish that fear and flight mode within you. They will go to the root cause of your pain, of your past trauma, you know, whether it's you've had some childhood issues with your family. They will go to the source and they will do everything in their power, to manipulate, to abuse, to ensure that you are no longer the victim anymore. You're the mad person. Can we relate to this? And what was your source of strength? What was your source of power? Whether it was a loved one in a family member, you're going to find out that you've been betrayed. And I don't mean betrayed on a small scale. I mean betrayed on a rather large scale. And you didn't see it coming. And these people, they're not just narcissists. They're not just gaslighting. They're not just being evil for the sake of evil. This is pure, let's be malicious. Let's be vindictive. Let's manipulate to a whole different level. To the point where they just want to control you in every shape and every form of your life. And they will not let go. And one of the advantages that they have is that they work as a team. It's not necessarily just one person. That type of energy, that type of negative energy will always come from different individuals until they, you know, squeeze, I guess, the last bit of blood from you, the last bit of harmonious love and compassion and self-worth that you have. And in those predicaments and in those times, it is very, very difficult to use your voice, to open up your throat chakra and say and be believed. That's the most important thing as well, to be believed about what is happening to you. sometimes these individuals will ensure that the people around you are gone, that you've got no support network. Okay? And they're doing that to be vindictive. They're doing that to manipulate, as I said. I'll give you a scenario from my own personal life that you might be able to relate to. And it might put it into more context. So years and years ago, and I'm still a teacher, by the way, but I was also a legally trained, and still am, a legally trained caseworker for the union. Some of you might know what a union is. For some of you, they might not. But within a school capacity, the union member is there to support and guide all the other members within the union within that school. I was also fortunate enough to be seconded. So I was seconded 1 day a week to go and actually work with the union colleagues. And, you know, I'm a trained legal caseworker for them when I was working within the United Kingdom. At the moment, I'm working somewhere else. But should I go back, then obviously I can continue to do that. Now, I had been seconded and my school had been taken over by a different company, different principal. And very quickly, the new management company wanted to eradicate and to introduce all these new rules and regulations that basically lots of trade unions had worked very hard to establish. And within minutes, within seconds, these people, because they could, decided to get rid of all those rules and make sure that a lot of the staff didn't have any human rights. And obviously within the joint union members within the school I was working in and the union caseworkers, they tried very hard to establish and ensure members were safe within that school. And jobs were at risk. We were told 20 members of staff were being made redundant and so on. And that normally does not happen within a school, by the way, within the United Kingdom. And it especially doesn't happen at Christmas. Okay? Very bad times to find yourself in that particular financial situation. Why am I telling you this story? Because it links to the theme of speaking up. When the principal did everything in her particular power to ridicule people, she had got 4 or 5 people targeted, and then it ended up being more. Within weeks, she was sacking those individuals, even though they were excellent teachers. She used unscrupulous and ruthless manners to get rid of staff based on the way they were dressed, based on the way they looked, their ethnicity, and never about what they were actually teaching. So this goes against everything within the union and within your human rights about how you can be got rid of it within your job. Now, she knew that in my particular predicament who I was. She knew my background, obviously she did. She looked at my file. And I can recall very vividly that I would constantly be fighting her on many levels. She did very unscrupulous things to members of staff, ensuring that they didn't have the time or the opportunity to get representation from outside. Okay? She wanted me, thinking I was naive and thinking I was stupid, how wrong she was, that I would allow these people, you know, some support as a caseworker, which I obviously did, you know, but she didn't realise who she was dealing with. And that's why I'm laughing, because, you know, she soon found out along the journey. Now, in one particular scenario, there was a gentleman I presented as a legal caseworker, and she had not seen him physically teach. She just made her mind up. She didn't want him, didn't want to pay him redundancy money, and so on. And what she did was she sacked him within 4 weeks, or tried to. And I was there as the caseworker helping this young man. Now, as it happens, we were involved, and when I say we, I mean myself and the union officials, not the unions within the school. The union officials were trying to ensure these people got their rights. Okay. And one morning when we had like a staff briefing where everything was told, she sent emails to staff, whole school emails, saying to staff, this is what's been agreed, this is what's been told, I don't know why you're getting unions involved, they've agreed, they've signed this, they've done that. Now, that wasn't true. But staff were so scared, so intimidated, so victimised, so fearful that they're losing their jobs, that they're losing their income, how they're going to feed their families, how are they going to pay their mortgages, how can they pay their bills. The staff went into fear mode. And this one particular day with briefing, she'd made that announcement and said, there are individuals in this room who you use as support, and they are liars. They are there telling you that this is not true, this is not accurate, this has been agreed, and you will do this and you will do that. And it was all control and power. Control and power. Once the briefing had finished, I had raised my hand, and even the senior management, obviously very, very scared of this new woman because they're in fear mode as well. I raised my hand and reminded her and reminded the staff that we had a union meeting, a joint union meeting that I had personally organised. She could not refuse access to these members of staff on the school grounds, and her face was a face of thunder. And she stormed out of this meeting. Now, when you look at that particular action, you know that that individual is not happy because they didn't get the result they wanted. And a meeting was held, people did come up, and I remember members of staff, as soon as she'd walked out of that briefing, having a sigh of relief and coming and physically patting me on the back and saying, thank you, because we didn't have the strength, we didn't have the power, we couldn't use our voice. And you know, your voice is the most important tool that we all have, and we take it for granted. When we say our truth and we stand in our light, you know, we are representing lots and lots of people. You don't realise the knock-on effect. For me, the knock-on effect was showing this woman I wasn't going to be bullied and harassed. She could intimidate nearly 300 members of staff, but she wasn't intimidating me. No way, no ma'am. Now, you're going to meet people like this in your lifetime. You're going to have partners, you're going to have family members, friends that are so toxic that they will do everything they can to ensure that you do not speak your truth. One of the most difficult ones, I think, for sure, is when we've got partners, especially husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, significant other, who've done nothing but manipulate, dominate. You know, they have abused, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, you know, on many, many spectrums they've abused. And what these people do, they're so clever. They have an art of fabricating lies that become truths. Not truths as in the correct truth, but half-truths. And unfortunately, they are able to manipulate, they're able to seize power and control. And in very, very worst case scenarios, that individual who's fighting a huge injustice, whether that injustice is you trying to get your actual divorce, you trying to get your property back, you might be trying to fight for your children, the other individual is the one that harms them, but you're the one that looks bad. Do you get what I mean? All this is relatable, isn't it? You know, our anxiety plays up. Our anxiety and our fear mode plays up. So what can we do? What shadow work can we do to ensure that this person doesn't succeed? Let me just say, it doesn't happen easily. It doesn't happen quickly. This is a long process of you standing in your light and standing in your strength and saying to yourself that I am worthy of more, that I am worthy enough to stand my ground. At times this will be very hard for some individuals we'll find ourselves physically shaking, wanting to vomit, wanting to, basically pull our hair out. Maybe we have skin allergies that have occurred. These are all stress-related symptoms that, our body is not coping. I've had situations where my hair has fallen out, for example, at the front of my body. It's telling me there's something wrong, something's not right. So, you've got to start with standing in your light first. Once we've stood in our light, there are other aspects of work that we must do. Lots of shadow work we must do. At times we find it hard to speak. And when we speak, we also must ensure we put boundaries in place, boundaries of respect, boundaries of love and compassion, not for the other individual, for ourselves. Because whilst you do that, you're building up self-worth, you're building up love of self. I will not allow myself to be treated this way, for example. I love myself, I care for myself. My views, my thoughts, my feelings, they are important. They don't need to be validated, they need to just be heard. Okay? And all these sort of affirmations can help you to gain strength. There's other things you can do as well. There are going to be times when somebody just blatantly, and I mean blatantly, will disregard everything you've just said. And that's when you have to keep remaining resilient, and you have to keep remaining strong, and keep trying to keep fighting the injustice. So, maybe you deal with some patterns of behavior where someone has tried to do various things. But that pattern will happen again, as in, is this pattern really secure? Is this pattern done? Or do we have to keep testing the boundaries? Testing, has she or he conquered this? Sometimes that person hasn't. That's why the pattern comes back again, for us to sort of really, really address it, And sometimes it's clear that we haven't really conquered it. That's why it keeps reoccurring. So just be aware of that as well. But your main thing is that you stand strong and you stand firm in your beliefs, almost like a stubborn bull. You're standing there and saying, no, this doesn't roll with me. This is something I will not do or will not take part of. And, don't think there's anything wrong with bowing out. By bowing out, I mean, if you feel that this situation or relationship, whatever it is not for you, maybe there's a friend that needs your support, there's nothing wrong with stepping back and stepping away, because we must look after ourselves. We must look after ourselves. We must value ourselves first and make that decision without any emotions, any feelings involved, that, no, we need to stand strong. We need to step back. Some individuals will melt away. Some individuals will resonate and will be annoyed, will be angry. Some friendships might end because these people do not respect you, do not respect your throat chakra, do not respect your voice. And as hard as it is, as toxic as it is, holding on to those people, we have to let go, we have to surrender, and we have to let go. There are others as well that we come across in our lives, and the test will keep coming back and coming back and coming back. And it's up to us to recognize what our journey is in regards to our enlightenment and in regards to letting our voice be heard. The stronger you are in speaking up for yourself, the stronger you are in being resilient, in empowering yourself, nurturing yourself, guiding yourself, the stronger your throat chakra will be, and the less that the toxic people can resonate. Don't get me wrong, there are going to be some very testing times in your lives as well. Sometimes you'll have a situation where your throat chakra really is being tested, and it'll feel like you are climbing a big mountain, a huge mountain, and sometimes you're on your own. But just remember, you're not really on your own. spirits with you, your angels are with you, your ancestors are with you. And as much as your shoulders feel at times you can't bear this weight, you can't bear this, carrying this burden, carrying this trauma that's ancestral, you have to be the one that breaks it. So just bear in mind what also you're here to do. Channel in with yourself, channel in with the people around you, and wake up and realize what you need to do to go forward. The more you start saying no, the more you say, I will do this, but on this condition, this works for me, but this doesn't. For example, these are all healthy words, healthy phrases to say, to put boundaries in place, why some people clearly don't have them. You'll see a big difference. But keep speaking your truths. Keep speaking your voice. Certain individuals do not want their laundry being aired, shall we say. They do not want people knowing who their real self is, who their real intentions are, who they've hurt, who they've manipulated. So you will be painted as a bad guy. But just stand strong. Stand strong in your beliefs, in you. Make sure that you keep staying resilient till you've worked out your pattern. Till then, everyone that's listening, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope this has helped someone. I hope we find love. I hope we find peace. And I hope we find that resilience to stand by and not let people hurt us. And you've got this. You've always got this. And you can do whatever you set your mind to. You can achieve anything. But it all starts with raising your voice and raising your vibes. God bless. Good luck wherever you are on your journey. Thank you for tuning in. Sending blessings and harmony and peace, and not forgetting love to anyone who needs it right now. Bye for now.